I'm going to just tell you a little bit about me. I've got some pictures up here. Okay, this is me and my family. I'm married to Tim, and he runs Big Church Day Out. He used to be in a band called Delirious, and I've got 4 children, and this is them with their other halves. And so I've been leading the church that I'm part of for about 9 years now. That's in Littlehampton, by the sea, which is really fantastic. And this is the church. We meet in a school, so you can see that's the church, the bottom photo. And then this is our community centre, which is an absolutely amazing provision from God, because it was a little tiny chapel, Brethren Chapel. It's in the poorest part of Littlehampton. And the little chapel joined us as a church. We meet in the school hall. They joined us, Aaron Church, which was an amazing thing, really, because they gave up their, when you're in a small church, you know who you are. And they gave that up, joined us, and we inherited their land. We always dreamt, wouldn't it be amazing to have a community centre that reached out into this, this community. We dreamt of it, thought how much we would love it. And we had no money. We haven't got loads of money where we live. And the government came to us and said, we'll give you £1.5 million to build a community centre right there. Don't you think that's amazing? God is so good. And so he built it. Yeah, the community centre was built. There it is up there. We share it with West Sussex, who is our local authority, our council, and they rent it from us Monday to Friday, and we have it the rest of the time. We run a 60-place nursery there. The church employs 70 people altogether, mainly people working in our community. That's it. And youth leaders. We've got 9 youth leaders that run the whole provision of everything that's going on in Littlehampton, which again has been given to us by the council. So it's absolutely amazing, and I'm just so grateful. So I'm going to talk about helping people, helping us to fulfill our potential, helping people to fulfill their potential. And all part of the growing. Having the talk's been brilliant, though, absolutely brilliant. And so, how do we grow people? I have a real passion for empowering people and seeing people go further than ever I have. I want to see the people in my church, every single one of them, old, young. There's about 400 people in the church. I don't even care if they're not in the church. I want to see them absolutely fulfill who they have been called to be. I have a passion in my heart to see that happen. Just like I've got 4 children, as you can see. Well, I want my children to go further than me. I want them to absolutely run with God, and I will do anything to see that. And so it is with the church. And I'm not just talking about empowering and releasing people into church ministry or into, youth ministry or whatever that may be. I'm talking about empowering them in every sector of life and saying to them, you go further in the creative arts, in politics, in whatever that may be, their workplaces. That's what I want to see happen. And so I'm just going to talk very briefly about, how do we see that happen? What do we need to do to see people really empowered and released and go further? The first thing I want to say is this. To see people fulfill their potential, to empower them, the first thing we've got to know is who we are. Do you know there are so many church leaders who are insecure and who do not know who they are? And when you're insecure, you cannot empower other people because you're always thinking about your power. All right? You can't empower if you feel powerless yourself. You've got to know that you are God's person and that you are his child, and you've got to be working from that place. I heard this really great thing the other day. Say these 3 chairs were this one's performance, this one's identity, and this one is acceptance and love. Okay? Most people in their life and maybe in this room are working from this premise. Performance. I do the right thing. I say the right thing. I will be successful. I will succeed in this, and this. And the performance is what is the most important thing in their life. I will do the right thing, say the right thing, be the right thing, succeed in the right thing. And then from that place comes my identity. And I will feel, if I have done the right thing and been the right thing, that I am good and that I am okay. And my identity will come from my performance. And then from my identity will come that I am accepted and loved. And most people that we are working with in our world are working from that premise. That performance is informing their identity, and their identity is informing who they are. All right? As Christians, we want to be working the other way. We are loved and accepted by God. It doesn't matter what your performance is. It doesn't matter how many people there are in your church. You are loved and accepted by God, and that's who you are. If nothing else happens in your life, you know that you are loved and accepted by God, which is, of course, when Jesus came out of the water after being baptized, he said, you are my son. I'm proud of you. And he came from that place. He hadn't done anything right by that point. Then out of that comes our identity, knowing we are good, knowing that who we are because we're loved. And out of that then comes our performance. We start then doing things. It comes out of a different place. Do you see what I mean? So when we know, it has to empower people, we have to know who we are. Otherwise, some people want significance, some leaders want significance, some leaders want power, and they don't want to give it away. But do you know what? That's what a leader is. A leader is somebody who is going to empower somebody, who's going to give it away, who's going to say, you go further. That's what leadership is. And so how can we empower others? I've just got a few things. And I just want to read from Philippians 2 as well, because this says it so amazingly. If you've gotten anything out of following Christ, if his love has made any difference in your life, if being in community of the Spirit means anything to you, if you have a heart, if you care, then do me a favor. Agree with each other. Love each other. Be deep-spirited friends. Don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet-talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and let others get ahead. It's the essence of what we want to do as leaders. Put ourselves aside and let others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. Think of yourselves the way Jesus Christ thought of himself. He had equal status with God, but he didn't think so much of himself that he had to cling to the advantages of that status, no matter what. Not at all. When the time came, he set aside the privileges of deity and he took on the status of a slave. He became human. Having become human, he stayed human. It was an incredibly humbling process. He didn't claim special privileges. Instead, he lived a selfless, obedient life. And then he died a selfless, obedient death, the worst kind of death. A crucifixion. Because of that obedience, God lifted him high and honored him far beyond anyone or anything ever, so that all created beings in heaven and on earth, even those long ago dead and buried, will bow in worship before this Jesus Christ and call him praise that he is the master of all, to the glorious honor of God the Father. Don't you think that's just an amazing passage of scripture, where it describes exactly what Jesus did? Okay, first thing, I'm going to whiz through some things. First thing is, to empower others, we need to have in our church, and I don't think we can just talk about empowering others on our own. We need to have a culture, a community that does that. I can't just do that by myself. The culture, the community needs to do that. So do we have a culture of champions? Do we to champion someone is to mean I'm going to get behind you and I'm going to say, you go for it. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to shout for you. I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to say, you go for it. We are with you. You know, sometimes in England, especially, we don't have that much of a culture of that. We don't champion each other. How I think we could. And I think that means so much. When I was younger, I was brought up in a church. My dad led the church, and nobody believed in women in leadership at that time. And I can remember being 15 years old and standing in a church where a guy came and prophesied. And he picked me out and he said, do you know what? You are going to do some amazing things for God. You're not just going to be a mum. You're not just going to be a wife. You are going to do some other things. And I can remember him championing me, lifted the lid off me. Do you know when you champion someone, you lift the lid off them? You lift the lid off them. You help them run. You know, it's important what we say to each other. We can let somebody fly, or we can squash them. We can crush them with your words, with your actions. We have that ability. Or we can say, you fly further. You go. And that is the culture of champions. The second thing, I'm going to whiz through these. Culture of feedback. Oh, no, it's not culture of feedback. Culture of fail. I had a friend, he was in a workplace, and in his workplace they used to have church of fail. They used to all gather together, and they used to get up and talk about the things that they had failed at. Who does that? Who does that? They encouraged a culture. They said this was because Thomas Edison had created the light bulb, and it had taken him 3,000 attempts to do it. That means he failed 3,000 times before that happened. We need to encourage each other because sometimes we fail. It's what will happen when we're trying something new. Don't make failure a frightening thing. Next thing, we need a culture of feedback where we feedback to each other about the strengths, about good things. When in your feedback to somebody, one little tip, make sure that you are specific about something. They will remember that. So instead of saying, great talk, great, say, I loved that bit. Or instead of saying, great song, I loved it when you stepped out a little bit there. The next thing, a culture. Do we have a culture of tough conversations? Being a leader means that you need to have tough conversations. I have them all the time, and they're hard. And I wish that I didn't. I wish I didn't have to have conversations with people where, they're just tough. Sometimes you're relationally, they're tough, but we need to have those tough conversations in order to empower people. And last of all, a culture of sacrifice. Are we sacrificing to see somebody else fly? Are we sacrificing to see them go further? Or our young people, are they thriving in our church? Are we empowering our young people? It's one of the most important things I'm thinking about all the time. How am I empowering the next generation? How am I equipping them? How do I help them go further? I think Jesus is the most amazing person, isn't he? Because he showed us the way. He showed us how to do this. You know, Jesus, you start the new year with aims and objectives and things, and you think, what was Jesus' aim? What was his aim? His aim was to set us free. His aim was that we would have life and life to the full. That's what his aim, that's what his life was. That's what he did for us. And how did he do it? He did it by dying. And I think that's just, we need to die to ourselves, guys, in order to see other people fly. And sometimes that costs. But I pray that we are a generation that knows how to empower and liberate other people. That's all I was going to say.